Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Sketchy Ideas, the live point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate, debate, a whole bunch of concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal development, movies, favorite places to go eat, anything, all of that stuff. We mix it all in to try and make it fun, to make sure you think twice before you try that brand new idea you just found on the interwebs. Hi, I am Brad James.
And I'm Michael Rampola.
And we are your hosts. And guess what? If you were watching last week and I said Michael wasn't going to be here, guess what? He's still not here because we are doing a live pre-recording just to make sure he was here. So
still
we're trying this out. So
still nice and raw.
We're not going to edit it. We're going to run it. But what that means for you, we still want your comments. Please drop them in there. Brian's watching. I'm watching. Michael's out on the links is what I found out. So he's not watching. So you'll only get commentary from two of us if you respond. Just so you know. All right. Today, we're going to continue our 80-20 rule, and we're going to talk about why you plan to fail when you use those things, kinda. But before we dive into that, a word from the organizations that make this happen. Over to you.
Sketchy Ideas is powered by Spirity. As a business leader, you are responsible for the success of your organization. And Spirity offers the one application-driven strategic business transformation system that keeps your team aligned and ensures that you know and they know that they're doing all of the right things to help you grow and scale your business. As a result, you get optimized organizational behavior and the kinds of outcomes that you want to tell all your friends about. Not that you have to tell them how you got there. So reach out to Spirity to help so that we can help you transform for growth. Reach us at spirity.com.
And also, if you are running that business, you probably feel you have to be in charge of everything, right? You don't. In fact, even the most organized people need help sometimes, like Michael and me. Maybe you don't have time to keep up with social media. Maybe you don't have time to write content. Maybe you don't know how to get in front of your ideal clients, any of that stuff. But my team and my friends over at Cream City Marketing can help you out. Our team over there is extremely experienced in making sure that we get you in front of the right clients with the right messaging, the right content, the right brand, all that good stuff, even adding in the automation if you need to make sure that your ideal customers see you and understand who you are so that when you talk to them, you can make them clients faster. If you want that to happen, get in touch with my friend and partner over there, Erin. Her email is erin@creamcitymarketing.com. That's erin@creamcitymarketing.com, and she'll help you out. With that being said, let's dive into this whole planning to fail. And
yes.
It's gone.
I'm diving.
So refresh.
Reset.
The last 2 weeks, we've talked about mindsets and lingo, right? And why speaking it into existence isn't really a real thing. You actually have to do work. And then last week, Michael talked to us and shared with us how you can actually take things like the 80-20 rule, actually understand what they mean, and begin to build implementation around that. And the reason we're diving into planning now is because guess what? We're nearing the end of Q2 in 2021. And now it's time to plan for Q3. So if you recall, you planned for quarters, and this is about that time to do it, right?
Time. It's about that time. I mean, when did the end of Q2 happen? Like, how did we get so quickly?
Not there yet. Don't say it. It's not. It's not real. It's not happening yet.
We're closer. But as we talked, you're right.
As we
talked about, this might be new for you if you're like me and you're used to planning the thing that's underway partway into the thing being underway. The fact that we're planning next quarter while this quarter is still wrapping up might be weird unless you're in finance and accounting when that's normal. Ish.
And if you're in finance and accounting and you're not doing it, read into what he just said.
We should talk. So, I mean, the idea is to, there's the reconciliation, there's a preparation for the reconciliation, there's month end, month close. Normally we actually don't close the month until the month is, anyway, point being, this is all planning ahead. What does it take to plan ahead? It's part of what I just talked about, which is anticipating, looking ahead. In order to plan ahead, I need to look at. I need to look at what results am I aiming for? We talked about goals. What's my approach to get there? We've got mindsets, measurements, 80-20. Here's our progression. Oh, goals. I forgot. Goals got us here. Smart goals. And they kind of connect to mindsets. They definitely connect to measurement. That's a maybe on mindsets. That's a definite on measurement. But therefore, if I'm going to get to my goal, I need a plan. Now, why does my plan include failure, Brad? Because I know I suck, or is it something different?
Because best laid plans always work.
There's famous quotes about this. The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Basically, we're mice, is what I'm hearing. I think that's the takeaway. Is that the takeaway? It's probably a different takeaway than that. Are we mice?
I don't know. When I plan to get the cheese, I just go to the fridge and I open up the cheese drawer and I eat the cheese.
And that's what makes us better than mice. The point is the plan. Here's the way I look at it. A plan is a theory. A plan is a guess.
Yes.
A plan is not real. No matter how much time you spend carefully planning.
A plan is a map, right? A plan is a map. So
I like that.
The thing with a map is often when you're driving, especially if you live in cities, you run into road construction, you run into flocks of geese and goslings crossing the street, you run into car accidents and detours, and often your map, if it's tied to a time limit, which most maps are if you're listening to your GPS or Siri or Google or whatever you're doing, you're going to end up taking different turns to get there in time or on time in order to make it happen, unless your plan is made up of those processes that you've been running over and over and over and over and over again, in which case then still now you have to plan for the variations or the mitigation, especially like in manufacturing, equipment breaks down. How do you deal with that? Or, hey, somebody's sick on your team. How do you deal with that? Any of those things, that's why plans are great, because it gets everybody rowing the boat and moving, driving the car in the same direction, right? People are all in the right seats on the bus and the driver's driving, but that doesn't mean that somebody's not going to get sick on the bus and you're going to not have to pull over for a little bit and do whatever you do.
That says a lot about your experience on buses right there. That was very that was not a theoretical bus ride you just talked about, was it? No, that was a real thing.
And I'm not saying me, I'm saying other people.
Others on said bus. You're right, because no matter how good the plan is, no matter how good the systems and the processes are, as we all know, since we've been around longer than a year and a half, sometimes the unexpected does occur. And the plan's resiliency is in its design. The plan's resiliency is in its design. Hence, great plans have failure planned into them.
Shout out to all of our astrology people. Sometimes your excuse is Mercury is in retrograde.
That's a thing, isn't it? That is a thing,
man. It's a mindset thing. I don't want to dive into that. That's a sketchy idea for another day.
We'll add Mercury. I think it's a red planet, right? We'll add Mercury to our mindsets. Okay.
No,
check.
that's Mars.
No? Shoot. What color is Mercury?
Gray, blue.
Okay, Google.
Red. Could be red. I don't know.
What color is Mercury?
We don't have Brian today. Brian is out today, so we're doing this on our own. What?
No, it answered the wrong kind of Mercury. Okay, Google. What color is the planet Mercury?
Dark gray surface.
Here's what I understood.
Like the element itself? Okay, well, good.
No, here's this is Mercury. See, look.
Okay.
Mercury.
Check. Mercury. It looks like the moon. Are you sure you did Mercury, not just the moon?
Yes, it has a gray color. Just off topic.
Moon.
Tell us about planning.
Planet colors. Archive that one, Brian, for future. All right, so whether Mercury is in retrograde or not, failure is inevitable. And here's why, because There's no way for everything to go exactly according to plan because the plan is a theory. It's a theory. It can't be real until you manifest it. There's no way for you to account for all the little things, good or bad, that might happen along the way, which is why a great plan is going to be my word of the day. A great plan is segmented. A great plan is segmented. It's the big thing broken up into smaller things, smaller pieces.
Looks very familiar, friends.
Where have we seen that diagram before? So a segmented plan is good because let's say, Brad, let's say I don't have a segmented plan. Let's just say I have this kind of a plan. What's the risk of trying to run a plan that looks like that?
It's a solid block, and it's going to break. And when it breaks, you don't really have alternates or plan Bs or plan Cs or, or
so if you're because the plan is going to break. You have to. The plan is going to break. If it breaks there, and the rest of it just falls off after that, I got nothing.
Right. Yep.
But if this version breaks and this piece doesn't work, okay, no problem. I can reorganize.
You can just bridge it.
I can bridge it.
Bridge it.
I can bridge it. Bridge it. I can bridge it. I should get an assistant named Bridget just for that. Just for that. We need to bridge it. Bridget. This feels like a top. What was the movie? Top Secret moment.
Yes. Yes. We'll just call up Michelle down at Squared Away and see if she's got it.
We need to bridge it. I don't understand. That's okay. Neither do we. So if there's the gap, I need to bridge. I need to resequence. I need to drop those three and put in new pieces, but I'm not losing, or maybe just one. I'm not losing the whole thing all at once. So a great plan is segmented. The big thing broken up into smaller things. Yeah. How do I do that, Brad? How do I take the big thing and make it smaller?
Milestones.
Milestones. There's a great idea. What's a milestone?
A significant deliverable that leads you to the next part of the plan.
Very nice. Sounds like a mini goal.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, milestones.
So is it
absolutely milestones. Back to our map. Milestone. Well, these aren't stones. These are signs. Oh, stones. Mercury. Jeez, come back around again. Okay, so these are the milestones along the way, right? And each of those milestones tells me where I'm at. I'm going further and hopefully in the right direction towards my destination. Great.
Yep.
Now, how do I figure out milestones? How do I, when I'm planning back in theory time, there's different ways to set up the milestones. What are some ways I might set them up that would, now I don't know which one's the right one, so there's a bunch of options.
So if we're tying it to the whole 80-20 concept, right?
Yep.
You're basically gonna set some metrics from the beginning to say, hey, 20% of what I do is gonna generate 80%. So you can actually measure this stuff. So if you're measuring, you can use results as your milestones. You can use, that's why I said deliverables. Results could be deliverables produced, or communication points that are happening. For example, when we're setting up significant marketing campaigns or revamping entire sales teams, we set up some significant milestones with the planning in terms of activity goals, or in event planning and events, you might have it segmented out into like, hey, all right, overall plan, you're going to start with the marketing. Now we're going to plan logistics, right? So really, if you're looking at it purely from a segmentation standpoint, wherever there is a stopping point where you can basically stop it and you'd have some sort of result or finished product, to me, that's a milestone. Is that
great? Milestone. I've also heard checkpoint.
Yep.
Right? I mean, all of these come from the same set of metaphors, by the way, back to our map. Nice job, right? Literally a milestone, literally a stone at every mile is where milestone comes from. Checkpoint, same thing. This is the point where we check in, or we need to get to that checkpoint by that certain time so we know we're on pace or on track. Or God, what was the game? What was the video game? Like the first one you could sit down and actually drive. Remember that? It was all about the checkpoint. I cannot come. It's gonna. But I have the voice in my head. I have the electronic voice where you're like Baja something, and you clearly Racing USA. I think that's
There
it.
you go.
Checkpoint. It was all like the seconds are ticking down, and you're like out of gas, and you clear the checkpoint, and then you get the room again,
yeah.
like one of those.
Yes.
Right. But that's kind of like this too, because I need to get to that checkpoint. As long as I get to the checkpoint on time, I'm allowed to continue the race. If I don't, I have to I have to remap.
And I just looked it up. So these actually were milestones started in the Roman Empire, and there was a golden milestone at the end of the road to say you've reached the center of the Roman Empire, and they all went outward from
that's cool.
Rome. So it was, So that's actually the origination of milestones.
Very nice. I was on the right track.
They were stone obelisks along the road,
letting me know I've moved certain distance, which makes sense because in the U.S. highway system, right, there's a mile zero and everything counts out from there. I mean, there's various mile zeros, but each stretch of highway has an origin point and checks along the way. Same idea. I know how far and how fast I've gone. Well, hopefully not how fast, because I probably don't want to know. But all of this is to see, am I on track to my destination? Now, this is all theory. I mean, again, this is all theory because planning is theory. So for you in your business or your goals or whatever you're trying to get done, it's important that you take the time to plan. It's important that you take the time because more often than not, what I've found is planning gets you at least minimum a 1-to-1 ROI, if not a 2 or better. So if I take 5 minutes to plan, I'll save that time later. It's the false thinking that says, I don't have, how many times have you heard this, right? I don't have time to plan. We just got to start doing.
Wait, it's a trap.
It's
a trap.
It's a trap.
There is a time to plan and there is a time to just do. If you're talking about planning, you actually have an understanding of generally what you're going to be doing, right, and you will have a direction and a result you're looking for. Otherwise, the hedgehog concept works. Good try.
Almost. Painted a big circle on the ground and you almost stepped into it. Right. It's if you have a general sense of where you're going and a general sense of how to get there, yes. But it is true. You have to take, here's the thing. Even if you say, I don't have time to plan, in that moment, you've done at least a little bit of thinking, like planning is happening. Right. It's an iterative process.
Planning is innate. It's a matter of how much time you put into formulating, documenting, and then training somebody else to do it if you're delegating. That at the end of the day is what, in my mind, like what you're saying, is that planning for most people begins to happen. Even when you wake up and get out of bed, this is also why when you have those smaller plans, this is why building out checklists and just having them visible for you helps you be way more efficient and an extremely high performer regularly. That's why the most disciplined people follow similar plans every single day, because they build rhythm and they get more efficient at that stuff. Doesn't mean there aren't variations, but they're constantly implementing plans and processes that they're following regularly. And that's what makes them high performers. Check Brendan Burchard, and you'll find out a lot of this stuff, right? From somebody who studied it, who's like, this stuff is extremely valuable. You just have to put in the work to do it, and then have the discipline to follow through over and 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 over again.
I think discipline is going to be, I see future conversation topic all around the discipline. Because this is all when we get to the following part, that's a whole nother level, but we need to get to it. But let's stay in our domain for now. So planning is pre-deciding. So to the point you were making, how do you become efficient in the moment? You decide beforehand what you're going to do in the moment. I learned this sports metaphor. It comes from baseball. Know what you're going to do with the ball before it gets hit to you. So if you're thinking of baseball and you're on defense, i.e. you're in the field, you're not hitting the ball, you're waiting for the ball to be hit to you. If you have already thought ahead and said, if the ball comes to me, I know what I'm doing with it. If you've already made that decision, you increase the likelihood of you increase the speed to take the action. Because if I already know as soon as I get it, I'm going there, I don't have to wait to get it and then decide. That doesn't sound like a lot of time difference, but it's the difference between out and safe on the other end. So know what you're going to do before you get there. Planning is a little bit of pre-deciding as well.
Yes.
Again, it's theoretical because we're anticipating an unknown future. But it's still going to pay off. Some people are going to, I'm already hearing the objections. But if I don't know what's going to happen when I get there, why am I bothering to plan, right?
So here's why.
Please tell me.
If you have anxiety about it, right? If you eliminate anxiety, your performance increases either way. So by you having at least some semblance of a plan, you eliminate mental anxiety, which goes into our mindset stuff, right? If you're actively following a mindset thing, 80-20 rule, you eliminate anxiety. When I coach sales guys on calling, I go, look, just schedule an hour every single day. And you know the plan, you've got your script, you've got your voicemail script, you have your objection script. Guess what? Making those calls gets way easier because all you're doing is following your script if your brain isn't functioning well that day. So you've alleviated the anxiety because you've got all the tools there for you.
Right. Yep.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I just,
But now, Brad, you told me I'm going to be less anxious, but you also told me I'm planning to fail. So now I'm confused again.
Sure.
I think so. You're telling me to plan to succeed, but earlier you told me to plan to fail. Which one is it?
Both.
Uh-oh.
Both.
You're going to both
why the results
failure
matter.
And success for me? Say it again.
Yep. That's why the results matter.
Ah. So does the plan include the results?
It's a plan to get to a result.
Ah. And this is an important point here because too often I see goals that look like plans and plans that look like goals.
Yes.
The plan is not the result.
No, that's a goal.
That's a goal. The plan is not the destination. The plan is not the where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be there. It is the means. It is not the end. On the other hand, I often see plans that I call plans masquerading as goals. It's all of the effort without the result. And the goal by definition has to have that result in it.
That's the typical person who says, well, I'm trying my best and I'm trying hard. And I go, yes, you are. Effort is not, acknowledge the effort. Just understand the effort isn't falling into your 80-20. If that's the mindset you're going with.
The goal is not to.
You got to be doing the right things. You got to be doing the right things to get a result, not just doing things for the sake of doing things.
But isn't it nice to feel like I'm busy? I mean, you gotta do something.
Great. My favorite. Yeah.
At least I'm doing
busy
something.
Busy is good.
Busy is great. Love the busy. All right. So
there's a reason that point right there is the reason why most of the successful people in the world joke about being busy because they know they put in the work when they're working and then they actually take time off and do things. And everybody's like, well, how do they have so much time? And it's because they've structured their processes, their plans, everything to do the things that they are highest value. And then they've delegated things off in a system and in planning to other people to handle the segmented stuff in order to make it all work.
Which sounds like a whole lot of work, Brad. I don't know if I want to do all that work.
Sounds like rocket science.
Maybe.
Not really.
Here's the thing about planning. Planning is, I said the thing. I think I said, here's the thing about planning probably 6 or 7 times. Brian will get us a count. Here is another thing about planning. Another thing about planning is it's your choice about where you want to allocate the effort. Planning is working smarter, right? If you say, I don't want to work that hard, you're saying, I don't want to work that hard beforehand. I'd rather work that hard during and after. okay, if you like rework and working harder than you have to, if you'd much rather just put in more hours of effort, don't bother planning. Don't bother. However, if you would much rather spend less time on effort and more time in preparation, actually forget, nobody wants to spend time in preparation. The only way I'm going to win this argument is if I say, would you like to spend less hours in effort? And then people say yes. Say, okay, then you have to spend more time planning. But I don't want to. I'm sorry, you already talked yourself into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to my map. Real quick example. I think it's UPS. I think is the one that figured out all right-hand turns, right? UPS gets credit for that one.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's planned. Now here, I just ran errands last night, and I had four places I needed to go, and I could have just jumped in my car and started going, but I actually stopped to check hours, to see where the different branches of all these places I was going, to see what was the optimal route to make sure I got everything done using the closing times to my advantage and the where I was going. If I had just gone to the most obvious first logical place, I wouldn't have never been able to get all of it done. I was leveraging this one closes at 9, that one at 10, and working that down. But if I had just gone to the most obvious one first, one of the places that actually was open latest, it wouldn't have helped me. It would actually have burned time that I could have used elsewhere. A little bit of planning, whole lot of better execution. Otherwise, I'm probably doing this over the course of 3 nights because I didn't plan ahead, or I forgot to grab something, or I went and I got it, but I only got one of the 3 things I needed. All of that is planning. And we give planning, it feels like this really big thing, even though we all do it all the time in very small ways, but we miss the fact that that's planning also. And look where it saves you there. Yeah, but I don't want to do that for my big goals. I just want to bother, planning the very next thing.
Right. Right. That's the doing part of the mindset thing. Like that's the. So this is the whole point that
right? Because I get to feel like I'm in motion. I get immediate response on my activity. Planning, I don't get any immediate response. It's all theoretical again. Darn brain. Immediate gratification, pleasure center. Come on.
Got to fight it. It's called discipline. You can't control. You are a human being.
There's our preview again.
Yeah. I feel like we've determined what we're talking about next week.
I feel like we're on it. And we are on it because after the plan comes the execution of the plan. And therefore, we should talk about how to be a good executor. Execution, not executioner. Executor is right. That was correct.
I prefer executioner. I think that's
fine. Then that'll be our title for next week, pending approval from our producer. So all of this comes So the last thing we talked about quotes, and I just want to drop this one of my other favorites in, which reinforces what we're talking about on both sides. Usually attributed to Eisenhower. He says, planning is essential. Plans are worthless, or some variation thereof. Planning, the discipline, the effort, the activity, is essential. Plans, the result, is worthless. Why?
Not the result, the map.
Sorry, the map. The map is worthless. The map doesn't like to hear that he's worthless. He has a very important role to play in our journey here. He has to tell us where we're going and how to get there. And first, the scary bog, and then the big blue mountain, and finally, I'm getting them all wrong, but you know where I'm going, right?
I feel like I'm trapped in an episode of Scooby-Doo right now.
Scooby-Doo, Dora, something.
Yeah, all of the above.
On the map.
So the quote though, what you're trying to say though is that with planning, you need to do planning so then you understand all the potential outcomes of those plans.
Yes.
That way, then, when you're actually executing the plan, you can adjust when those plans inevitably don't work exactly as laid out.
Exactly. Preset by the goal and the mindsets and the dedication to the outcome, now the planning has real value. And in that moment, I'll have already thought through contingencies, and my planning to fail actually works to my advantage now.
Right. Most of the time. Yeah.
Most of the this is all good in theory, Brad. Come on.
I'm gonna tie this all together.
Wrap it up.
So we just talked about with 80-20 rule and these mindset things, actively doing it takes some sort of planning, okay? And those plans that you're making, if you segment them, they tend to be significantly easier to execute. And essentially, if you segment them, you're also building out ways that you can delegate or assign them to other people on your team, either vendors or otherwise, okay? And the real trick here is that if you look at it from that standpoint and you begin to understand segmenting and how that ties to the results, you now are, yes, you're planning to fail because you're actually looking at, hey, each of those segmented pieces, potentially what could go wrong. And depending on the value of the task, so if you're doing the 80-20 rule, if it's in that 20% that creates 80% of the results, spend significant time on that 20% and not so much on the rest of the 80% of the work that you're doing, okay? That's why this is important. And next week, we're gonna dive into the discipline behind it. I will actually walk through how I plan out my day and how disciplined I try to stay in order to execute all this stuff, which everybody is really weirded out by. Hint, hint, it's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of mental fortitude to go, nope. And I'll walk you through that because
I like it.
All of these things that I've done in order to do things like the 80-20 rule, the 10X, creative, like a whole bunch of stuff. I plan out my day based on the quarterly results that I'm looking for in order to achieve where I'm going. And then I choose one of those mindsets because they all work differently for different things. And it really is dependent on the goal that I'm trying to hit. So we'll dive into the discipline next week.
I like it.
Of Brad, the disciplined executioner.
Oh my. Listen, it's a little early for Halloween, but we're going inside Brad's head next week on Sketchy Ideas. I'm gonna throw one more. Yeah. I'm gonna throw one more connection back. I'm going to hypothesize that planning is in the 20 of the 80-20 rule. Planning is a small thing that has a big impact and a big outcome. It is a little bit now for a lot later. And if you love our 80-20 idea, and you should because it's science and we like science, planning goes in the 20. Planning goes in the 20 to get you the 80. I said it's a multiple ROI. I'm even going to make as big, bold a statement to say it's here too. And if you want to see what that looks like when Brad tries to do it, I know I'm looking forward to it. Like I look forward to root canal. We're going to go into Brad's head next week to understand the discipline of a disciplined executioner right here on Sketches. We're going to diagram a brain. It's going to be lovely. Tune in next time.
I'm actually a little afraid.
You should be.
I'm a little
I don't
worried.
know where I got my Transylvanian accent, but I kind of like it.
I don't know either. But anyway,
get us out of here. Get us out of here, quick.
So on today's episode, you learned about how planning and segmenting planning can actually help you implement one of those mindset things, specifically 80-20 rule in this case. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you hated it, email us, whatever, But if you did like it, screen capture this if you're on listening to it on a podcast, share the video with a friend, especially if you're struggling with this whole planning thing. And in fact, if you are struggling with that and you are a business owner, Spirit actually runs quarterly planning events. They've got one coming up this Friday. So get in touch with Michael on that. And they're great. They actually will help you lay this stuff out in a way that will make sense and not seem as daunting as it does right now as we've been going through it in the last few episodes. So come back next week when we go through this live. And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll see you next week.